Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Okay, today we are going to completely dismantle a massive, widely held misconception about everyday fitness. For years, we've basically been told that putting on a comfortable shoes and taking a gentle stroll around the neighborhood is the ultimate ticket to long-term health. But today, we're going to look at the hard data, and let me tell you, it tells a very different, deeply fascinating story.
So let's dive right into this. Because some people are, well, incredibly inactive, there's been a massive push in recent years by health campaigns to promote walking as a good, comprehensive workout. And look, walking is certainly good, but the real question we have to ask ourselves today is it actually enough to protect your body and your brain in the long run?
You see, there's a fundamental disconnect here. The walking myth is this belief that walking is a complete, all-encompassing exercise regimen, the whole shebang. But the vigorous reality is that while walking is an absolute necessity to prevent the dangers of a totally sedentary lifestyle, it is absolutely not a substitute for actual vigorous exercise. Basically, walking keeps you off the couch, which is great, but it doesn't independently safeguard your cellular health.
Section 1, the reality check. Let's look at a real-world story. To really wrap our heads around the gap between low-impact movement and actual fitness, listen to this quote. This person walked 6 to 7 miles, 5 days a week, for 15 straight years. They were incredibly proud of this routine. And frankly, anyone would be. I mean, they felt fit. They assumed they were totally bulletproof because they were putting in over a dozen hours of movement every single week.
But here's where it gets interesting. 5 minutes on a stationary bike completely destroyed that illusion. Just 5 minutes. A few years ago, this same person decided to change things up, bought a stationary bike, and they couldn't even manage 5 minutes on that machine without feeling like they were going to literally collapse. All that walking had built baseline endurance, sure, but it had entirely masked a massive gap in their high-end cardiovascular health.
Which brings us to Section 2, the hidden health risks, the actual cost of inactivity. Now, what's really interesting about this next slide is that this cardiovascular gap isn't just about feeling winded on a bike. It is about the cellular cost of inactivity. And these numbers, they are absolutely staggering. When researchers compared people who do no intense activity at all with those who have the highest share of vigorous movement in their routines, the differences were literally life-saving. We're talking about a 63% lower risk of developing dementia, a 60% lower risk of type 2 diabetes, and a 46% lower risk of dying from any cause. You are missing out on these massive transformative disease risk reductions if your heart rate never actually spikes.
And the biology behind this data is absolutely wild. Take dementia, for example. When you engage in vigorous exercise, your body produces what are called heat shock proteins, and these have a profound neuroprotective effect on your brain. And for diabetes, well, losing just 7.5% of your body weight through intense, metabolism-boosting exercise drastically increases your glycemic control. It essentially slashes your risk of type 2 diabetes.
All right, Section 3, the intense movement advantage. Why intensity matters.
Now, I know those risks sound pretty terrifying, but here is the incredibly empowering news. You do not need hours in a gym to fix this. We just need to clearly define what we mean by vigorous. Vigorous physical activity is simply the kind of intense movement that makes you feel completely out of breath. That is the gold standard. It's not about the specific machine, it's not about the expensive shoes, it's just about reaching a physiological state where your panting or holding a conversation becomes basically impossible.
Moving to Section 4, the biology of vigorous exercise. Let's look at the biological triggers inside your body.
So, what exactly is happening under the hood when we push our bodies to that uncomfortable state? Well, the crucial point is captured perfectly here by Professor Shen. Lower intensity activity, like a gentle walk, literally cannot fully replicate the biological triggers of vigorous activity. Your body reacts entirely differently when it's pushed harder, even if it's just for a really short burst.
When you finally hit that out-of-breath threshold, your body responds in incredibly powerful ways just to survive the stress. Your heart is forced to pump way more efficiently. Your blood vessels actually become more flexible and pliable, so they can handle the rush of blood. And on a cellular level, your body drastically improves its ability to process and use oxygen. A casual walk simply doesn't demand those kinds of adaptations.
Section 5, quick solutions for lasting health. Let's get to the fix.
So how do we actually get these adaptations without totally derailing our busy weeks? Well, this is the magic number I want you to burn into your memory today. 15 to 20. The research shows you can achieve these measurable, incredible differences in your disease risk with just 15 to 20 minutes of vigorous activity. And wait, that's not per day.
That is 15 to 20 minutes per week. Seriously? So, here's your practical, real-world game plan. Step 1. Ditch the gentle stroll as your only workout. Definitely keep walking, but you've got to add intensity. Step 2. Find a tool that lets you safely push your limits. Things like stationary bikes and vertical climbers are phenomenal for this because they engage large muscle groups super quickly. And step 3. Do HIIT, or high-intensity interval training, for just 15 to 20 minutes a week. Go all out for 30 seconds, rest, and repeat. The goal is to get out of breath.
And to bring this whole thing full circle, remember our friend from earlier, the one who nearly collapsed after 5 minutes on the bike? Well, they started doing HIIT. They used a vertical climber, lifted some weights, and finally pushed their cardiovascular limits. And the result? They report having crazy amounts of energy, zero anxiety, visible muscle tone, and vastly improved coordination. Pushing past the comfort zone of that daily walk completely transformed them, both physically and mentally.
The evidence is literally right here in front of us, beautifully laid out in the data. Walking is wonderful. It really is. But intensity is what triggers true life-saving health. So, I'll leave you with this. If just 15 to 20 minutes a week could save your brain from dementia and your body from disease, what is stopping you from getting a little out of breath today? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I absolutely cannot wait to dive into our next topic with you.